welcome to AiArthritis Voices 360. This is a 360-it, which means it is a spin-off of a main episode that we have aired in November of 2022 on patient leadership in research. So we are breaking out the conversation here. This is Tiffany Westridge Robertson, the CEO of AiArthritis, and I have non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, and I am not alone. I am here with others. So, hey, Deb, say hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Constein. I am tuning in from the Madison, Wisconsin area. My primary diagnosis is rheumatoid arthritis, and I was diagnosed at the age of 13, so 40 years dealing with it. Carrie.
Hi, everyone. I am Carrie Wong, also known as the Butterfly. I am tuning in from Westchester County, New York, just north of the city. After about 8 years of trying to get a diagnosis, I was finally diagnosed with the rare disease called sarcoidosis. But in the time since then, I have also been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and Sjogren's syndrome, and a handful of other things in what my rheumatologist calls my own personal flavor of autoimmune soup. And we are also here with Eileen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eileen Davidson, or Chronic Eileen on the internet. I'm from Vancouver, BC, Canada. I'm living with rheumatoid arthritis. I am also a research partner with Arthritis Research Canada's Patient Advisory Board and many more other opportunities.
All righty. And so we are here to spin off a conversation that we started on patient leadership in research. So we talked a little bit about being a participant in the importance of research. And in this 360, we are going to talk about our access to research and the knowledge of understanding how that research impacts us, our diseases. And that could be pharmaceutical, like therapies like biologics, and how those are in the process of being tested and what that means for treatments for our diseases. It might mean information that we learn about non-pharmaceutical, like fatigue or brain fog, or studies about that, or how we could possibly manage pain, for example, with mind-body relaxation. All these kind of things they talk about at these conferences that AiArthritis attends twice a year, for sure. We attend the American College of Rheumatology, or the ACR, every November. And then we also do the European Alliance of Associations for Rheumatology, or EULAR, every June. And I see Deb laughing because I had to pull it up on my screen. They changed their name and I never can remember it. So those are the two main rheumatology research conferences. So those are the ones we're going to mainly focus on, but there are plenty more. I know Eileen has gone to many and other different locations as well. Those two are the ones with the Go With Us to Conferences program that we run at AiArthritis, which you can find out more and go with us to conferences virtually, mostly. And that is at aiarthritis.org/conferences. But let's jump right into this, because there's been a lot of conversation about, should patients be at conferences? Should patients not be at conferences? Because there are predominantly designed, or at least the ones that we'll say for the ACR one, for doctors to get continued education credits. Now, the one at EULAR does have an entire patient organization, patient track. So that's a little bit different. But the point is, when is it okay for patients, and what do you all feel about it? So I'm going to turn it right over to Carrie.
So I think that there's definitely a difference in those types of conferences, who they are actually designed for, what the target audience and the main goal is. But overall, I mean, I think that it is so important for us to be able to attend as many of these conferences as possible, because that is it kind of two things really that are super important about it. One is that is how we can learn so much more about our diseases, especially with a rare disease like sarcoidosis. I have learned more from sarcoidosis conferences I have attended than I have learned from any of the doctors that I have been to. And that includes specialized sarcoidosis centers. So we can learn so much about our own conditions from these, and it's so important for us to know. but also that's the opportunity, and that's the way for researchers and doctors and healthcare professionals and whoever else is attending those conferences to really learn from us, not what other people think about us, but actually from us ourselves.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn it over to Eileen because I think that's a good segue into speaking at conferences. So even though sometimes the audience is intended to be researchers or rheumatologists, often a patient will be invited to the panel as the expert and to talk about how you participated as a patient research partner, which we will get into a little bit more in a different 360 it, but just to kind of weigh in a little bit on the participation at a conference as a speaker.
I just want to say that it's important for us to attend because I love the slogan, nothing about us without us. And I think that definitely applies to conferences when it comes to new and breaking news for the people that it truly does impact, and that is patients. Now, speaking at conferences is really exciting because I love to be able to give a human touch to the studies that are being presented. And to also talk about how maybe I've applied them to my life or what really concerns me about living with a rheumatic disease. And it really brings research to life and gives it more of a less clinical kind of scientific, boring approach, but it brings it alive to the human side of it. And when we attend, we could take that information back and say it to patients in ways that patients can actually understand. We also flag the topics that are important to patients. So one of the things I do is I speak at conferences about the studies I've been involved in, but I'm also a patient reporter for Creaky Joints, usually every conference, and it's my job to flag the golden nuggets of studies that would really help benefit people with the same condition or different conditions, instead of having to sift through all the boring scientific jargon that comes along with it. And also it's our job to flag studies that we believe are missing and those gaps.
Absolutely. Deb, you want to add to that as a person who has gone with us to conferences or every time we've done the program?
Absolutely. So I have been Tiffany's roommate, and we've gone to many conferences together. And I think it's using my background. So I graduated college with a double major. I double majored in biology as well as dietetics. So it's a big span of knowledge that I was able to deem in college. But now what I'm doing in my own life is going to these conferences, understanding the technical jargon, and being able to turn it back around in patient-friendly voice. So like Carrie mentioned, we are able to go back and explain to all of our viewers here go with us, and we're able to talk about the sessions that we went to and what were we really excited about. We also, during the conferences, we pick out themes that we notice. Treat to target, for instance, and we're able to explain what that means. And just look at, from the patient's view, what's going to be intrigue them the most. And my specialty is diet too, so that's always interesting, digging into those pieces as far as what is the latest and greatest information that we can bring back to our communities.
Absolutely. And I think that is the most important point of what we're trying to get to here is we need to be present at these conferences because there is information that is so valuable to helping improve our own disease journeys. And it takes patients who are able to digest, these are kind of complex sometimes, information, and put it back and be able to explain it or teach it in a way that is understandable, because there's no other group other than the people with the lived experience who are going to be able to do that. So that is one main reason why we must be there. Carrie, what else do you have to add?
I don't know if you saw, I was like writing vigorously, just as what you were saying, Tiffany, that, we are sometimes invited to attend these as experts and to speak as experts. And we are experts in our bodies and our, what is going on with us. And I think that line right there is something that is so important. I was working with a group on planning I don't remember if it was a conference or a webinar or something. And we were having, some patients speak and some medical professionals speak. And the way they initially had it listed on the agenda was that we would hear from the experts, and we would hear from the patients. And Deb, I see you cover your hands to your face right now. And that is how I felt. I was hurt, upset, angry, infuriated, so many different things, because how can you say that they're the experts and we are just us? We are experts. They might have more medical education. They might understand disease and process, but we are the ones who know what is actually happening here. As Tiffany said, we are the ones with the lived experience. And that is not something to just, sweep away as a tiny little thing. We are experts, and that matters.
And that will translate too into a different 360 that we're going to branch off to from the original episode and into another, which is we are experts, and the researchers are seeing that expertise is valuable, and having us on their team can also improve their outcomes. But making sure that we are at the table, and I want to kind of branch off because there's a lot of discussion among patients in our community and this also stems out from the diversity, equity, inclusion, and access episode that we did in October of 2022. And it's, when can we be at the table? And when is it appropriate for us to be at the conferences? And I think all agree, we should always be able to. But as we started out saying here, we also have to remember the intended audience. So as I said, when you go to EULAR, for example, one of the intended audiences is the patient. They have an entire sessions dedicated to patient organizations and patients. However, you go to the ACR, the American College of Rheumatology, the intended audience are researchers and doctors. It was established in the 1930s as a conference for continued education, where doctors could go and research could go, and they could learn about treatments and important research to bring back into their practice. And it still is that today, right? But we, as people living with the diseases and seeing the value in everything that we have learned from going, that's where we came up with the idea for this Go With Us program, because we were learning so much, and the people who we brought with us in our kind of small circle, I have never learned so much about my disease until I went to these conferences. And it was sort of an aha moment that we're needed to be there. In saying that, I think that we need to consider also some kind of code of conduct. Who wants to weigh in on that a little bit?
I can start, okay. If you don't mind. So it's come up with the ACR, the American College of Rheumatology, that they're concerned that, and I frankly, I think it's happened that patients have stood up and spoke kind of out of turn and not been professional. So I think from that experience, that's why they limit the inclusion of patients. And I've always heard it, it's made it difficult for us to even have access to the most latest and greatest topics, that we can't even attend those, even if we try to sign up in a different way, because we've got our different professional anecdotes that we can actually add. And being a dietitian and things like that, it didn't even give us access to some of these topics. But in saying that, we're also seeing that EULAR is having the very same problems as far as this goes. And it's something that Tiffany, while we were at EULAR, we were talking about, and I said, establishing a code of conduct for patients to adhere by, but not only patients, but the researchers and the doctors. Everybody should be able to be held accountable to those same things, being professional, not speaking out of turn, taking your, just not shouting and things like that. I see Eileen's got a point, but that's just the start of my feelings on it.
Go ahead, Eileen.
I've heard a couple things before, but I do want to touch base on what Canada is doing, because I don't know if any of you have been to the Canadian Rheumatology Association conferences. But one of the things I've heard why we don't get involved is because patients can get too emotional at these events. So that's kind of interesting. Not sure what they really mean by that one, but
that's universal. And sometimes I admit, I will not allow, when I'm speaking at a conference, I will not allow them to address me or as a patient advocate. And they must address me as the CEO of International Foundation AiArthritis and a person living with axial spondyloarthritis. For that reason, because unfortunately, there is some negative context that comes around the term patient advocate because of some situations where patients have become very emotionally charged at conferences. And it just, unfortunately, is a stigma that comes with speaking. And
it follows us. Yeah,
it has followed us. And I wanted to just kind of build on something that Carrie started to say, and you also, Deb, when we mention this or we talk about this sort of code of conduct, this is the first year that I'll be speaking at the ACR, and we are actually the first patient organization to ever lead a scientific session. You can lead, the rheumatologists and the researchers always have to lead those. The patient organizations can lead the associated rheumatology professionals. So in saying that, I had to read, like, it's called faculty. So first of all, it was really hard to get me even in the system because I'm not a researcher or a rheumatologist. So that was a whole story in itself. But they finally got me in there, and I had to sign a code of conduct as a rheumatology or researcher would be. So when I saw that, I thought, well, so everybody has to sign one. So what is the big deal? To be honest, because I know some patients have pushed back and said, oh, that's offensive. Why should we have to sign something that's, well, everybody does, apparently.
It's a very good point. That's a really good point. So why separate it? Yeah.
And what you were in, kind of to tie this together as well. So what Doug was talking about at EULAR in 2022, they have always allowed patients, it's very inexpensive to go. However, there has been lately some concern expressed by the other attendees because there was some behavior where there were patients who, I don't know what they said, but it was reported that they were speaking out of turn or asking inappropriate questions, meaning questions about disease management, kind of personal from a patient. And these conferences with the audience are designed to be continued education for the doctors and the researchers. So I have been at conferences where they've said before it started, at the ACR, actually, Deb was sitting right next to me, where they've said, if you are a patient or a patient organization, we are going to ask that you not ask questions. At the time, I was offended. But now that I'm more educated about it, I'm actually not, because I get that makes sense. Carrie, you have something to add.
Yeah, I think that at its most basic level, that's just a matter of it all comes down to respect. And I mean, I remember, I don't even want to say decades ago, because oh my God, am I old to say that? But at previous jobs that I've had, and where I was a trainer, we used to, every training that we did, the first 5 minutes of the session was, let's establish the ground rules. And as much as we asked everyone, all the participants to come up with them, they were pretty much always the same ground rules. And that was, be respectful, not talking over anyone else, waiting, speaking when it's your turn to speak, not making anything personal or offensive. And I mean, that's just basic human common courtesy, human decency. And so I think that like you said, Tiffany, you had to sign the code of conduct, but so does everybody else. Mm-hmm. That, I mean, I can't see how that could be. I mean, it's sad that it's necessary, really, but it should be a bare minimum thing for anybody to be able to agree to in order to attend and participate in a professional event. And we are professionals. We are professional patients. Yep. We are, that's just, you behave according to your environment. And that's what this environment calls for.
I love that. I think that right there packages it up in a big bow and says it exactly perfectly. It is if these are professional conferences, then you come as a professional, and then that's how patients should be viewed, as experts, as professionals, and patients who are attending should also respect who the audience is, and not, as I've seen before, scream with, and I say scream with big because it's big capital letters in the chat room, "We are here, ask us questions." That is not going to get us anywhere. That is exactly the opposite of what is considered, why they're scared of getting us more involved, because that is not the time nor the place to do that. Okay. So in saying that, we are going to wrap up this 360 but we wanted to throw the question out there. If you are a patient who does attend conferences or is interested in attending conferences, what are your thoughts on this and being included? How do you feel about signing a code of conduct, or, what have been your experiences at conferences? But more than that, we really wanted to let you all know that there is a way that you can go to conferences virtually without paying anything, and that would be following people like Eileen, as Chronic Eileen, and the reports that she's doing with Creaky Joints. She joins us for our Go With Us to Conferences team. Carrie could join us easily as well. It's just a matter of signing up. It's free on our website at aiarthritis.org/conferences. And we will do debriefs. We'll actually send you behind the scenes videos and maybe even talking to researchers. And I also wanted to just plug with that also that we are going to be working here with Eileen also with a new program that she's going to be putting up, which I can let her mention if she so chooses. If not, we'll cut this out. But Eileen, why don't you also tell them where they can find you and go to conferences with you?
All right. Well, I'm easy to find, Chronic Eileen, on everywhere. But I wanted to bring up, don't be discouraged if you want to attend a conference and they don't have the capacity to include patients. There are many other opportunities where that research is presented to patients and in a more plain language way so that you can understand it. Many organizations, they try to also have events for patients to attend, like Arthritis Research Canada has their education series. And then I'm starting up a podcast / YouTube channel called Rumor Has It. And I will be interviewing researchers, clinicians, patients, experts, whatever, and quick, short, snappy little segments so that there's not too much boring information. It's clear, it's concise, and you can have those little golden nuggets to take away. And then also, like, if you want to get involved with conferences, the Go With Us program is probably my favorite because it does support patients to go. Or if you are involved with an organization, say like I'm involved with Arthritis Research Canada, sometimes they will sponsor you to attend. And if you are a patient partner in research, sometimes you have the opportunity to attend with the researchers. So there's many different ways, whether attending in person or following the media that comes out after. Creaky Joints does an amazing job of making it easy to understand, flagging what's really important to us. They have patients going there, seeking out that information, but also watch for those webinars and other information sessions that are geared towards patients too.
Absolutely. All right. That wraps up our 360th. And we are just going to really quickly, Carrie, where can everyone find you?
Okay, so as I said, I am also known as the Butterfly, and because I am from New York, I spell it like I say it, like butter. So you can find me at BUTTAHFLYK for Carrie, and you can find me at Butterfly on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and LinkedIn. You can find me at Float Like a Butterfly is my website, is my Facebook, and it's my column on sarcoidosisnews.com as well.
Great. And as Chronic Eileen, where can they find you?
As long as you can spell my name correctly, EILEEN, you'll very easily find me as Chronic Eileen on the internet, all social media channels, and reach out if you feel like it.
All right. And then, of course, you can always find Deb and I at AiArthritis at all of our social media handles, and join us for Go With Us to conferences. I guarantee that you will not be disappointed in the experience, and the information you learn will be able to help improve your healthcare journey. So please join us as we go to conferences.